So landing
Cool.
sequences. Joe, you mentioned something about a plane at the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Ooh.
Oh, you're segueing. Sorry. I was still in Starship mode. I was like, what?
Wah, wah, wah.
Okay, so hang on. Somebody actually sent me this, and I want to make sure and give them credit. I should have had this up. But yeah, so this is from futurism.com. So scientists create jet engine powered by only electricity. Sounds impossible, but the way it works is it says this device compresses air and ionizes it with microwaves, generating plasma that thrusts it forward. So it kind of sort of works the same way that the jet combination of air and fuel does, but instead of using fuel, it just ionizes it with microwave and creates a plasma and pushes it forward. It says there was a prototype that was able to launch a 1 kilogram steel ball 22 millimeters into the air. That's the same thrust proportional to scale as a conventional jet engine.
Oh, okay.
Really?
I was going to say, that's not very high.
Yeah, that didn't seem that impressive to me. 24 millimeters.
I mean, you got to start somewhere.
We're going to the moon.
But yeah, it says our results demonstrated that such a jet engine based on microwave air plasma can be a potentially viable alternative to the conventional fossil fuel engine. And that's from Wuhan University. We just keep hearing that city's name. Zhao Tang said in a press release. So obviously, we're talking about reducing emissions, reducing fossil fuel use. Airplanes, the airline industry uses quite a bit. I don't know. Maybe, Tim, you know the amount of fuel and emissions that come out just from a single plane flight. It's a lot. But the idea of having this could be a plane that could be run on batteries, I guess. I mean, I don't know what how much electricity is required and what kind of storage would be needed for it. But it's interesting. It's an interesting idea.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, that is huge. That's obviously one of the biggest. It's not a very big polluter. I think globally, the airline industry is 2.4% or something for CO2. But one of the big concerns is that it's right there between the troposphere and the stratosphere. So there's things that happen at that level that could be more damaging or have greater effects than they do down here at sea level. They don't cycle as quickly, et cetera, et cetera. So that would be fascinating. Just in general, any technology we can find that can help us move into a more sustainable future is fantastic. I mean, that just sounds incredible.
Mm-hmm. There's a whole field here called electric aviation. So it's kind of interesting. There's that one, that German company Lilium, I think it's called. And they actually have one that can fly. I think it's not, it's early days, but it's like a 2-person plane, not propellers. It has its own. It's a vertical takeoff and land, and I think it can go 300 kilometers. So pretty good distance, not
what
like
do you mean it's not propellers. Is it like ducted fans, like a drone? It's got to be propellers.
No. Maybe inside of it.
Yeah. They're just ducted, which looks super cool.
Yeah, let me show you. Okay, there it is. I guess you're right. Yeah, they are propellers. Or impellers.
Sweet,
I don't know. There it is.
That's like the Sonos of airplanes.
Yeah, the German design.
That is super cool.
What is this?
So weird looking.
Whoa. Yeah, but they have video of it flying, and they've done some test flights, I think. Yeah, super weird, but really interesting, like, that they can even do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. As battery density increases, obviously, that will be a huge potential.
I mean, that's the biggest hurdle in so many of these things, I think, is just energy storage. And so it's just really hard to beat, I don't know what you'd call it, combustibles fuels, like, gasoline or, jet fuel or RP1 or whatever. Yeah. Like, we just don't really have another option that can have that much energy. Yeah. So, but this is a whole field, and these guys aren't the only ones. I think they just have kind of the coolest looking one. But yeah, so that'd be cool. I mean, I wonder if 20, 30 years from now we'll look back and be like, oh, remember when we used to have jet fuel? Chemtrails. Remember when chemtrails were a thing everyone was afraid of? the CIA and
I do wonder-
5G. We're on 10G now.
I wonder what ionized, or if you have like basically plasma coming out of the back, though, if that'll still create condensation trails and stuff just by rapidly vaporizing, the water molecules and turning it into something. And I would be curious. I would assume though it's still better than leaving a trail of CO2, and soot and all that stuff. But.
And I did look it up. The guy who shared this with me on Facebook, his name is Matthew Sloan. So thank you, Matthew.
I wonder if there's other
10 minutes later.
categories of fuel for planes. Like, I know natural gas vehicles are a thing. Like, I think in San Diego, I don't know if it's all of them, but a lot of the trash trucks run on natural gas. And there's a lot of like city buses and things that I actually saw. We have here in San Diego maybe, I don't know, maybe it's just the one I always see, but there are a bunch of all electric city buses. And this isn't like a trolley that has like a connection to an electrical line above it. It's just like normal city bus running down the street. But I wonder if if you could switch, I guess you'd have to just do the math on the whole thing. If there were alternative fuels that weren't, like just pure electricity and air, but something that's more like natural gas or some other kind of combustible that's also extremely high energy density, but has less of a greenhouse gas effect. I don't know.
Well, liquid natural gas and liquid methane have been used and early looked at for jets and stuff. The only problem is, especially. Well, liquid methane, I think, liquid natural gas is basically the same thing. I think you have to have it in really, really, really high pressure to keep it into its liquid state. So you can't use your wings as your fuel tanks anymore because all of a sudden now they're getting really heavy and have to be more rigid. It's just all this like scaling factor where the complexity of it ends up being a lot harder than it's worth. But I think the cool one for jets would be like a biofuel that's at least produced green, and like that's less sooty. I think would be.
Well, some of these carbon capture companies like Carbon Engineering, I think Climeworks is the one that's doing this. They actually collect carbon out of the air and turn it into jet fuel.
Yeah. Have you guys? Do you listen to Green Tech Media at all? Have you heard of them?
I've heard of them, but I don't.
It's like they have like a blog and they have a bunch of things and they have a few different podcasts. And one of them, so Mark Andreesen, if you guys are familiar with him, founder of Netscape, if you guys, the old timers that remember what Netscape is.
I remember Netscape.
And, big time investor in Silicon Valley and a lot of companies you know of. Had a big thing recently about like it's time to build, and he had this like call to action and all these things. And it was almost like the most why don't they just thing ever for climate stuff. But it sparked one of the guys at Green Tech Media, his name escapes me right now, but to come up with essentially like what we would really need to kind of solve the climate crisis. And Mark Andreessen was like, there's nuclear. It doesn't pollute. Some say if we could have 1,000 nuclear plants, it would be fine. Let's just do that. See? Done. Like climate change solved. Like was how he kind of put it. It was kind of like the dumbest thing you've ever heard, but it sparked the other guys that really know what they're talking about to do this thing. And they got into all these really interesting different things in terms of like, how it affects different levels of the atmosphere and the types of things you need. So biofuels is in there and some of those other things. So if you guys are interested, go check that out. I'll put a link to it down there, but it's really fascinating to know, like I hadn't really ever heard of high voltage DC power lines before, but I've been really digging into these and it's kind of mind blowing. So apparently if you want to like send electricity across further distances, alternating current doesn't work as well as direct current does. So, but then you have to replace what's there. Like it's like super expensive and crazy, but it would actually mean we need far less energy than we need today. And so there's all these weird things like that. It's like, holy crap, like it didn't even...
Because you're not losing so much in the transmission.
Mm-hmm. Right. Imagine like we have a power plant in California and it sends stuff to Las Vegas. Like you have to go through, a couple 100 miles of just desert. And throughout that, you're going to have substations along the way and all these other things. And it's just like ridiculous. So if you could have high voltage DC lines that could actually, transmit much further, you would need less stuff and it would require less energy, et cetera, et cetera.
Hey, thanks for checking us out, guys. I hope you enjoyed this clip from our podcast.
We do a weekly show here on YouTube, so make sure to subscribe to Our Ludicrous Future, where we discuss all the things that are going to make our future totally ludicrous.
You can join us here on YouTube or at any of your favorite podcast places. Plus, if you want to get some behind-the-scenes stuff and join a cool community, you can help support the channel at patreon.com. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, guys.
Well, how about we do this one?
Okay.
This comes from Tony, one of our Patreon supporters on Discord, one of our famous, fabulous people on Discord. He says, why don't they just offer a police package on their vehicles for Tesla? Making a fleet, aka non-luxury version of their vehicles, would make them less expensive and more enticing for local government. I might not read all of this because it's kind of long, but basically he's asking, why doesn't Tesla make a police package for their cars? Now, I know that there have been some police agencies that have used some Teslas. Am I right about that?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Can my voice get any higher when I ask that?
Yeah, there definitely has been. I'll start and then go to field it to Joe. I think, or field it to Ben. I think that I've been saying this for a long time, especially when Cybertruck came out. I think that makes complete sense for. I mean, that's like the perfect vehicle for a police department where it would be all-wheel drive. Police vehicles sit and idle constantly just to run the alternator in order to run the computers and all the stuff on board. Well, guess what? If you have a giant battery pack, you don't have to sit there and idle all day long, and they'd be fast enough to keep up with perpetrators of all speeds. You could literally keep up with like a sport bike. No more would there be sport bikes outrunning cops. They'd just be like, oh yeah, we're with you. Stuff like that. And having, I got some flack one time for suggesting that armorizing and militarizing the police is a bad thing, obviously. Like, yeah, I don't really want my police running around with like constantly, AK-47s and giant tanks or anything. But at the same time, like, I have police, too late. At the same time, I have friends that are police officers, and I would like them to be safe if they ever had to get into an altercation. And so if they're in a bulletproof vehicle, I don't see that as being a bad thing, especially when it's a civilian vehicle that civilians can use. I would like to think that would be a wise thing for the police department to use. Realistically, I think it could be a lot cheaper. Like those interceptor packages, like especially the Ford Explorers that are interceptor packages where they have a bigger radiator, bigger all these things designed for police use. I mean, those are expensive. I actually think Tesla could undercut them and totally reduce their monthly costs because they are spending a lot of money on maintenance and just gas to sit there and idle because they basically don't turn them off for like weeks. Yeah, that's, I think absolutely that should be looked into once they have the volume to keep up with demand. What do you think, Ben?
It's true. Yeah,
I feel like you're clicking around about to show us some big PowerPoint that you've done.
Yeah. So this is happening. The coolest one of them all is Dubai police apparently ordered a bunch of Cybertrucks, which it just seems like the most Dubai kind of thing, right? Like these like crazy advanced
over the top.
Yeah, exactly. Like so that's happening. I don't know why this looks like a can of soda to me. Their logo and everything just looks like a refreshing beverage, but
like a cucumber drink.
Yeah, it's like, oh, this is healthy, whatever this is. So it is kind of happening. There's some here in Fremont, California, where, of course, Tesla is located. I know the SpaceX Hawthorne facility also has not police but security vehicles that are Teslas.
And Boca Chica now.
Boca Chica has Tesla police cars too.
I think 1 or 2 now. Yeah.
And then here's one in LA that's also being used. So yeah, I think like it is happening. Yeah, I think it does make sense. Probably the only challenges I could see would be police vehicles tend to have a lot more stuff in them than they maybe look like they have. Radios and other kind of radars and things like that just aren't standard. Now, I don't know if when Ford, sells police agencies their cars, if they put that stuff in there and it's just ready to go, or if it's like, oh no, you just buy the base model and then you have our guys or whomever hook it up. I really don't know. But yeah, I mean, Tesla, I would just say is still this may sound weird, but they're still very much like in the early days of manufacturing things and like learning how to be the best manufacturer of things in the world. Like they're certainly making strides, but they still have a lot of challenges. So adding complexity to it is probably not beneficial to them versus like what we're seeing already. That'd be my guess.
Can you imagine though if they sold it, because they have like all the hardware necessary? Front-facing radar, rear-facing radar.
Oh yeah, they can make the baddest one ever. Like yeah,
without even modifying it, other than making sure it has the glass compartment or whatever, to separate the front from the back or whatever, and that type of stuff. But they could literally have like all their database and everything on the touch screen. I mean, they could do everything. Security cameras are all built in.
I think that's kind of what Tony was asking in that question. It was like, why don't they just make a package that already implements all the stuff that they have in there that can...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, a Model Y would be a good fit, too, because I think previously Model X and Model S were just so expensive, trying to sell $100,000 vehicle to your police department. Base model, or, at the time, pretty expensive. Model Y and a Cybertruck might be a good fit.
So it started a conversation in Discord about how resilient their battery packs might be against gunfire, which happens from time to time with cops, or toward cops. So there were people going back and forth. Brett and Jurassic Park car were going back and forth on whether they would need to reinforce with armor or something like that, how much that might weigh things down. Cybertruck obviously would be perfect for that. But you know what I was also thinking Cybertruck would be really good for, and I can't believe I haven't really heard anything about this yet, is storm chasers.
Ice cream truck. Storm chasers.
Like Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt?
Okay, so there's a YouTube channel, yes, them, that it's one of the, how like Google every once in a while is just like, hey, watch this channel, watch this channel, and it just started feeding me like constantly this guy's videos until I started watching him. Then I was like, okay, yeah, these are pretty great. His name is Pecos Hank. Pecos, like Pecos, like Pecos River, Pecos Hank.
That happened to me recently with a guy that makes pools with a stick, but that's a different discussion.
Well, anyway, no, he's a storm chaser. He makes amazing videos of tornadoes and hail and stuff like that. And some of these guys, some of these like hardcore storm chasers, they actually, build these like armored vehicles to go out and take all the hailstones and stuff.
There you go.
There you go.
Cybertruck would be perfect and fast enough to. The only thing I would worry about is like there is definitely a little more range anxiety with an electric vehicle than there is a gas vehicle, and they're in some pretty remote places lots of times chasing stuff. Where like if I chase it this way, and I'm now going to be 64 miles from the nearest supercharger, like I'm screwed,
Yeah, that's
so you'd have to be more mindful. But
those are super high miles though. Like what is a Cybertruck, like 500 plus miles?
Mm-hmm.
So
it's true.
Yeah.
And the superchargers are getting more. We're finally getting a supercharger here in Waterloo, Iowa.
Nice.
Being built as we speak. They're popping up fast. If you look at supercharge.info, I mean, yeah, that's going to be an issue of the past, in my opinion.
Problem solved.
Hey, thanks for checking us out, guys. I hope you enjoyed this clip from our podcast.
We do a weekly show here on YouTube, so make sure to subscribe to Our Ludicrous Future, where we discuss all the things that are going to make our future totally ludicrous.
You can join us here on YouTube or at any of your favorite podcast places. Plus, if you want to get some behind-the-scenes stuff and join a cool community, you can help support the channel at patreon.com. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, guys.